Hello, welcome to the Soulprint Intuitive Tarot channel. I'm really glad you're here today. It is May 29th, so I just have a couple quick announcements. One, the weekly crystal reading has already been released on this channel. So if you didn't receive notification of that or you're interested, check it out because it just got released a very short time ago. And tomorrow I will be releasing on the Soulprint Insights channel a channeled message that I think is probably going to be called Heaven and Hell. So that's going to be interesting. The last video I released was about animals and what happens to them when they go into the light. And so I thought that I would follow that up with what happens to humans. So if you're interested, you'll find that on the Insights channel. It'll be released probably Sunday morning. Okay. So if we had any doubts whatsoever, we would, if you're hearing that noise, that is little Twyla just singing her song. If we had any doubts that the GOP had lost its soul, we don't have any more doubts. We don't have any. There's not a shadow of doubt that they have become the soulless party of Trump. You know, how those senators could sit down with Brian Sickness's mom and still vote that nothing important happened on January 6th that justifies a commission. It just tells you everything you need to know. So now I know I've been reading a lot on the GOP lately. I think because it just doesn't seem to be a bar low enough that they will not slither under. So I want to take a look at what's going on there and exactly how long is this going to go on? Is this permanent? Is this what we get? You get. Sorry, I'm Canadian. Okay, let's take a look. So the GOP. I think I want to look at sort of the current currently. I think that's what I want to see. Let's see. So GOP current, GOP current, GOP current. Okay, so as you know, I don't usually read bottom of the deck, but I'm going to just make a notation of this one, the Magician. Okay, so they are not done with their dirty tricks. That is the base of them. That is who and what they want to be. Absolutely who and what they want to be. Okay. So we're starting with the Moon, the Seven of Pentacles, the Hierophant, and the Three of Swords. Okay? So there is so much going on behind the scenes that I think most people would be absolutely appalled with if they actually knew all of the shenanigans, all of the scheming that's going on. You know, there's always a lot of talk about, well, who's holding blackmail over who, and you know, how is that how they're getting, you know, these people to do what they want them to do and comply. You know what, I have to tell you, I've been reading these cards for a really long time now when it comes to Trump and the GOP. I'm not saying that some of them aren't being blackmailed, probably are. And I'm not saying that most of them don't have nasty skeletons in their closets. I'm sure they might. But when I look at their energy, it is not about somebody twisting their arm to do what they don't want to do. What this is about is It is as if their their inner devil has literally been given permission to bloom and blossom, okay? It is as if what comes out of that guy's mouth speaks to them. He says the things that they wish they had guts enough to say, and he gave them permission for that. So they are now operating from their most base place. Simple as that. They're about greed. They are about power. They no longer have any shame. They no longer are worried or concerned that they are hypocritical, that they are bold-faced liars. They don't care because he gave them permission to be that way. He made it okay. He made it, in fact, politically desirable in some places. So the government, the Republican Party, as you knew it, whether you liked them or didn't like them, whether you agreed with them or didn't agree with them, the bottom line is the Republican Party now is shattered. Like shattered. They no longer represent anything that they used to represent, okay? Now it is simply about how much can we get and how long can we hold it, and what, frankly, do we have to do to hang on to and increase that power. So what you have here is sort of the destruction of what you once knew, and that has been completely broken down, and you have what you see in front of you now, which is complete corruption. It is complete debasement in many ways. Okay. So, going forward, you have the Ten of Wands, the Three of Wands. You have the Queen of Swords, and you have the Ten of Swords. Okay? So, it's never a good day when you get both the Ten of Wands and the Ten of Swords within a couple cards of each other. So, they're going to find, as time moves forward, that it becomes a much harder burden to carry, because even though even though 1/5 of the Republicans believe the QAnon conspiracies, even though something like 50% of them believe the election was stolen, the reality is that water that they carry is going to become harder and harder to carry, because the person they're carrying water for is getting into more and more legal jeopardy with every day that passes. And while at the moment, the Democrats seem to be still convinced that they can somehow do bipartisan stuff, and they're not going to be able to. But that doesn't mean they're powerless. There's going to come a time very soon where they're just going to start pushing ahead and doing the stuff they need to do with the slim majorities they have. But because that other guy is going to be in more and more trouble, and see, this is the thing, at some point, when some of these details start surfacing, there's going to be a backlash even by some of their base supporters, because if you're running around bragging that you're a multi-millionaire and you pay $700 a year in taxes, that's going to get a few people's hackles up. And some of those hackles are going to be coming from their very base. The most extreme are going to gravitate to the Matt Gaetzes and the Marjorie Taylor Green Taylor, whatever her name is. Okay. But sort of the others are going to start going, wait, just wait a minute here. As more and more people are charged with the insurrection, as those cases come up, and you have people who are, you know, basically saying, listen, I was misled, I was duped, I didn't realize he was a con man, it's going to start penetrating to some degree. So what's going to happen is that's going to leave the GOP politicians in this very strange place where they're going to try to start grasping to find a new way forward. They're going to once again try to reconfigure their message, and they're going to try to revert to somehow that law and order party, because let's face it, law and order party has become a euphemism for let's screw everyone who doesn't look like me. Okay? But it's not going to work for them. So in some ways, what we are witnessing is the beginning of the death of the GOP. We really are kind of in a rest in peace GOP moment. Does that mean it's going to happen this week or next? No, it doesn't. But is it going to happen? Oh yeah, it's going to happen. All right. Hold on. Okay. So I really wish, I swear, as soon as my table gets here, I'm going to be more excited than you guys are excited for my table to get here, because the cards just don't lie. And it's so much more effective, I think, when you can actually just see them and you can see what I'm talking about specifically. Okay, so we started off with the King of Wands and the Emperor. Okay, so this is about messaging. This is about trying to retain power. This is about, doing and saying whatever they need to do and say to hang on. It is about being as corrupt as they need to be to hang on. It is, and again, this is the thing, even those people in the party who don't like or don't approve of that other guy, he sings to their soul. You know what I mean? He just speaks their language. So Mitch McConnell, in my opinion, has been corrupt for forever, probably since he drew his first breath. But he was restrained by what was considered like normal political behavior. What has happened is that he has been allowed to say that behavior isn't actually necessary. I can just do what I want. So they become power greedy, okay? And they start to convince themselves that what they say, the delusions that they're operating and functioning under, are perfectly accurate, perfectly true, but worse, they are entitled to that behavior because they're the GOP, because they're white, because they're privileged, because they can. They've gotten away with it for a really, really long time, and they're going to continue to get away with it as long as they can. I wish I could remember the name of the person. I saw somebody on MSNBC yesterday. It's a professor of some kind. And he made a really valid point, tragically valid, but valid. He was saying that, when 9/11 happened, it was bipartisan. It was like all hands on deck. Let's get this commission going. Let's find out what happened. Because the attack came from Muslims. January 6th was an attack by white people. And they're just not scared of them. They're just not. They're them. So they will continue to deny, they will continue to lie, they will continue to be corrupt because they feel entitled to do so and to be that way. That's okay. Let's give them some free rein because this is what's coming down the road for them. And this card, as most of you know, very often represents Joe Biden to me, but it also represents the law. And this card is actually telling two stories. It's talking about the things that the Biden administration is doing that people really, really like. And, you know, Republicans are starting to really freak because Biden's popularity continues to increase. And even Republicans, you know, they want those jobs that infrastructure is going to bring, right? They want a lot of what he is offering. And so as his popularity increases, of course, down goes theirs. So he is going to play a role. How strong a role, frankly, in some ways remains to be seen because he's really of that place where he really, really wants everything to be bipartisan. And he's having a hard time, I think, wrapping his head around the fact that a lot of this stuff is simply not going to be. So there's that. But more, this card is also representing the fact that they are not only skating so close to the line of what is legal and not legal, there's sometimes they're just sliding right over it, like, you know, I don't know, a, a, a sled or a toboggan, you know, gone wild. They're going to start to some degree in different places feeling the legal pinch. Okay, whether it is courts saying slow down and back up, whether it is investigations, the Justice Department going after different states or going after different members because they are careening out of control. Okay? And this is what follows: death, judgment. What is that? And the Eight of Cups. That's what you've got. So the party, as we sort of know it now or have known it, is going to have to undergo a very distinct transformation. Unfortunately, right now, it looks as if the transformation really, really is heading towards that party of, you know, of Trump. The problem is it's not sustainable. And that's what they don't seem to be understanding. And, you know, I know right now, I think maybe that's part of the reason that I keep doing readings about them, because when you watch the news, you sort of get the feeling like, oh my God, they're unredeemable. This is never going to self-correct. And the United States is going to end up in this really crazy place where they just, hold on. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I was saying, part of the reason I think that I keep reading on them is because when you watch the news, it feels like they're just taking over, and there's never going to be any consequences for their actions, and it doesn't matter what crazy and insane things they do, they just seem to get away with it. But every time I step into the energy, it's like this is coming to an end. Now listen, it's probably going to take a while. Okay. I actually, as of right now, it looks like the midterms are not going to be anywhere near the success story they think they are going to be. This may very well be one of those rare instances where the party in power actually increases power from the midterms. And I know that that doesn't happen very often, but that's sort of what it feels like at this point. So at some point, they're going to have to face the judgments. They're going to have to figure out a way to remove themselves from the behaviors that they are currently exhibiting. And it just doesn't feel as if that is something that they're going to be able to do quite as easily as it appears they're able to do it right now. Okay? So what does this look like going forward? Like, how do we understand where this ends up? Well, you have the Ten of Cups, the Knight of Swords, the Ace of Swords, the Two of Pentacles. Okay? So, for right now, they are going to continue thinking they really have this thing nailed. I mean, they just are. They're going to continue to charge ahead. But eventually, there's going to have to be some answers. There's going to be laws coming in some red states in particular, that are so draconian. Eventually, those are just going to have to get pulled back, whether, they end up going to the highest court in the land and they get sort of kiboshed. But I almost want to say, like, it feels as if the Republican Party as we know it is almost going to splinter. And you're a two-party system there, so it's not like it can splinter into two separate parties and one is more moderate and one is more extreme. But it kind of feels as if it's almost like going to be a little bit reminiscent of the Tea Party, where there was that core group and they just sort of ran roughshod over everything. But they're not going to be as powerful. There's not going to be as many of them. Okay. So again, they're going to continue for now, but I think going forward, the midterms are not going to be quite as successful for them as I think they are. So the leadership, both in the House and the Senate, are on much shakier ground than they think they are, and it's for very interesting reasons. It's because there's so much of this sort of renegade action going on right now that they really can't control their members very well. They're both losing grip. Okay, now that doesn't mean that people, like this vote that just happened about this commission, right? It doesn't mean that they don't eventually comply, but in order to do so, these guys are calling in favors, and they're having to frankly humiliate themselves on the public stage. And you have to remember that some of these people, whether we like them or hate them or are neutral, some of them are very, very savvy politicians. I mean, I don't like Mitch McConnell. There's nothing about him that I find sort of redeeming. The reality is, he is a very, very good strategic politician. He knows how to play the game, and he knows how to play it really well. Figure it out. How did somebody with an 18% popularity rating win in what appeared to be almost a landslide election in the last election? Like, how did that happen? I mean, Lordy, they barely started tabulating the numbers and he had won. How does that happen? What's that about? Okay. But the end is coming. It has to come to a conclusion because it is so dangerous. What is going on is such a state of bullying. And the thing is, the United States doesn't exactly have sort of a sterling history, right? I mean, you guys carry a lot of heavy karmic stuff around. But for those of you who have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I often talk about sort of this good versus evil and this kind of higher consciousness to lower consciousness, stronger vibrations to weaker vibrations, that kind of thing. And so the reality is it's what's going on globally, where you are seeing these real uptick of these kind of dictator-like regimes, and where you're seeing this uptick of, even in your own country, this sort of really, drilling down and getting more and more and more conservative to the point where they're perfectly willing to violate human rights. That is going to continue to play out for a while, but what you need to understand is that this time, unlike other civilizations that were lost, like Atlantis and Lemuria, this time there are so many light workers in place who are doing their level best to hold the light and encouraging other people to hold the light, that the kind of behavior that perhaps they could have gotten away with before is going to be very, very difficult for them to maintain over the long run, because the reality is as more and more people become more and more filled with light, less and less is their sort of behavior even remotely acceptable. Okay, so they're going to continue to hang on. They're going to fight with everything they have. I always refer to them as sort of that animal that's trapped in the corner. And yeah, you know what? Absolutely, that's when they're the most dangerous. But that's also when they are most at risk. And new energy is coming in, and new ways of looking at things are coming in. And those people who have really, really aligned themselves to sort of that extreme right are going to find themselves in a bit of a tricky position as more and more people start to question what's going on. So there we have it. That's what I see for the GOP. It looks like in the short term, this is going to continue. And it looks like, though, as that guy continues to face more and more legal jeopardy, they're going to have a harder and harder time kind of, he's going to be so busy at some point. And the thing is, for right now, listen up, he is going to do everything he can to maintain control of that party, because for right now, he believes it is the only way that he can actually remove himself from the kind of jeopardy that he's in. But ultimately, I just don't see it working for him. And so the GOP is almost going to end up like rudderless, right? Like they're not going to quite know what direction they're supposed to go in. So, things are going to shift and change. I think by the midterms, as the midterms approach, you're going to see an actual increase in the absolute crazy, which is going to then really turn off moderate Republicans and independents. And they're going to have to shift away from that party. Because what the party is now saying is like conspiracy theories on steroids, right? I don't kind of give very often, although I have an opinion about everything. I try not to give my opinion or suggestions very often. But, given what's going on with the Democratic Party right now, and this continual push for this bipartisan stuff that is just gumming up the works, for those of you who are in a Democratic state, for those of you who have Democratic leadership, it might be time to start reaching out to them and saying enough is enough. Stop with the bipartisan. It's not getting you guys anywhere, and you're in jeopardy of losing the support and faith that we put in you during that last election. Because I think it's time that they also faced a couple of really hard truths. And one of them is that politics as they knew it is not going to be the same going forward. And even as the GOP diminishes and loses their power, it's not going to revert to what was. It's going to be reconfigured into something new and something better, because the energy of the planet is lighter and brighter and more transparent and more inclusive. And so it can't go backwards. It can only go forward. And so as it moves forward, it's going to move forward at a higher vibration. And so, thinking that we just can get this back to what was normal is not the correct thinking, because it's not really about going back to whatever you perceived as normal. It is about finding newer, stronger, more compassionate, more inclusive ways forward. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me here today. To my new subscribers, welcome to Soulprint. I'm delighted you're here. To my established ones, I adore you. And until next time, take care. Be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.